Africa Cup of Nations today at 6 p.m. Ivory Coast. Well, I think the people who are fasting and praying, or the people who are praying, who even care, would be praying that Ivory Coast, of all teams, will not also shame us. God no go shame us. That's the thing that we're all praying for today. But anyway, yes, of course, the sports gang will be here in the studio at 5:45 and kick me out of the studio, but I'm not going to go anywhere. I'll be here to be part of the analysis. My name is Mariana Coding Kilishi. Just joining us. The program is Hard Facts, and this is A's and Nays. And today we're going to be talking for the next few minutes that we have in the studio about legislation when it comes to mining and illegal arms. I'm still waiting for my guests to join me via Zoom. He's, of course, going to be helping us understand what the law says about illegal mining or mining in itself. And of course, for the longest time we kept talking about proliferation of small arms and weapons in Nigeria. Whatever happened to that? Because there's so many guns in the hands of so many people. In fact, if you Google how much a Kachlinkov is as we speak right now, you'd be shocked, because there's so many of those guns in this country that are not being handled by police officers. They're not being handled by soldiers, but bandits, regular people. And so it calls to question a lot of things, and that's why I'm trying to get my guests to join us so that we can have this conversation. Just maybe lay a foundation for the conversation, and then, of course, we can continue to have this conversation next week, because it's very important, and it's something that we must consider, especially the legislation on mining. It's very important. We remember in Zamfara, before this new government, the issue was gold. The people who were mining our gold. I remember as a little girl, my grandmother had this really nice stools. They were Ashanti stools. They were made of gold, and it was a gift from her then husband, who was Ghanaian, who passed on. And this was actually done in Ghana. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. My mother wore those earrings and then gifted them to me. Amazing. But then we are letting outsiders come and mine our gold, take it wherever, and then make it into very expensive gold that we get to buy again and keep as assets. It calls a lot of things to question. The fact that people can come into our country and mine our gold, mine our whatever, everything. I was telling someone the other day that for the longest time in my state, there are a group of people who were just mining away. There's something that we have in Cross River that helps us with our cement factory, limestone. There's a lot of it deposited in Cross River, somewhere in Akampa, which is like the biggest local government area. Akampa local government is like the whole of Akwa Ibom state, and we have limestone in it. There are people who will just come and mine it. It wasn't controlled until a certain governor decided that enough is enough. But do we have those kind of leaders today who can decide enough is enough? Well, my guest has joined us. Professor Richard Aduche Wokocha is a professor of law at the River State University in Port Harcourt. Professor, thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, the Super Eagles are going to take our shine. But let's lay a foundation to this conversation. Yesterday, or the day before, people died in Ibadan, or your state, because of what the government has claimed is as a result of illegal miners storing explosives underground. And if the government had said to us that, it's mining, they're miners and they must have forgotten, he said illegal miners, meaning that the government is feigning ignorance that they know that these people are in their backyards. Of course, Dele Alake has also come out to say, he's going to tighten the noose, etc., etc. This should have been his first duty when he became a minister. But I don't want us to dwell on that. Let's look at, what the law says about mining first and foremost in Nigeria before we go to talking about arms? Maybe we'll talk about arms next week. But what does the law say about mining in this country? Who's allowed to mine anything that's a natural resource in this country? Let's start from there, Professor.
Well, mining, as you know, is under the exclusive legislative list. So, first under the management of the federal government. And who is allowed to mine? It's anybody who is licensed by the federal government to mine.
But then we hear of more illegal, but we hear more of illegal miners than the people who are licensed. And should anybody be just given a license in this country?
Yeah. Well, if you hear of illegal miners, it means you're dealing with people who are not licensed to mine. It means they are coming in and they are engaging in the activity without the necessary approvals issued by the government. And funny enough, we will hear of foreigners mining, but this will not be the first time we're hearing of foreigners mining. You remember the stories about Zamfara and
the gold in Zamfara, yes.
And planes coming in and taking out gold that are being mined in those areas and stuff like that. It makes the country look like an open territory without boundaries. But that has been our lot. So if up front, from the very beginning, they can tell you, oh, it's people who are involved in illegal mining. So we know illegal mining is going on, and we are not doing anything about it until it has claimed Nigerian lives or the lives of Nigerian citizens. So anybody who is said to be engaged in illegal mining, breaking the law, is engaging in an activity for which he is not licensed to engage.
Let me ask, and I know that you're not government, but for the purpose of this conversation, is it even possible for a government, especially a governor, states, to say they do not know who these illegal miners are? Because again, anything that's a natural resource should be properly policed. Am I wrong?
You are right. Anything that is natural resource, the way our country has structured mineral rights, our right to natural resources, it's under federal, it's under control of the federal government. So the Ministry of Mines and Industries, on such a ministry, should be the ones to tell us from the register of people who are engaging in which activity in what places. And it should naturally also be their responsibility to ensure. Remember that the federal government also has policing powers and all of that, and the entire security structure. So it's federal responsibility to determine who mines and to ensure that people are not engaging in illegal mining. There is very little a governor can do. I believe the highest the governor can do is if it is brought to his attention that there's an activity going on within his territory, he brings it to the attention of the federal government, which has the policing power and which has control over mining. So that's about what the governor can do. It's entirely federal responsibility.
So is it safe to say at this point that all the problems that we've been facing, whether it be in Zamfara, whether it be in Cross River, whether it be in your state, and wherever else that you have great stuff to mine, that this is as a result of the fact that the federal government has dropped the ball or have, one way or the other, abdicated its responsibilities and allowed for all kinds of people to take away our commonwealth or our natural resources. And then, of course, we're left here to tighten our belt as they continue to tell us. Can we say they dropped the ball?
Yes, you'll be correct to say so. Everywhere you have that situation is failure of the federal government to do its work. States ought to be able to engage in mining, but they cannot without federal license. Because it's under federal control, even when a state wants to get involved in mining resources within its territory, it has to obtain license from the federal government before it can do so. So if federal government issues license, federal government has policing power, federal government has entire security powers, you cannot hold another person responsible for failure of security unless you are saying they were aware and they did not bring it to the attention of the federal government. Otherwise, it's really the federal government that should answer.
But then the state governor is the chief security officer of every state. In other words, that security vote that he takes, that we don't know how much it is and they will never ever disclose, is supposedly to protect lives and property in the state, working in collaboration with security agencies. Now, if people are coming into your state and you perceive that what they're doing is illegal, is it not your place as a governor to, one way or the other, protect those facilities, because you're the one who's on ground, not the Ministry of Mining or Natural Resources? And of course, knowing the bureaucracies of this country before it gets to the federal government, should the governors not be, front and center and, ahead of these problems, instead of exposing their people to what's happened, exactly what happened in battle?
Let me begin with the expression governor is chief security officer. We know that in this country, the governor may have security vote, but the governor does not instruct the police. The police takes his command from the center. So the governor can report a matter to the police formation in his state, and they will be expected to act. And they will most likely procedurally clear with the center and act. Because if they get contrary instruction from the center, they will not act. You recall all the dramas we have had played out in a number of states, including River States, where about 2 administrations ago, where the state will be saying one thing and the center will be implementing a different thing security-wise in the state. So they do not have policing powers. They do not have security structures with which to secure the state. They can only volunteer information. So, yes, it is the primary responsibility of the governor to ensure that he gets report of whatever is happening within his territory, because it is the lives of his citizens that is at stake. It is the well-being of his citizens that is at stake. He is also the person in charge of that area. So information-wise, he has that responsibility. And where a governor is aware of such development and he does not report to the central government, then he has failed in his duty as a governor governing that territory. He has failed in his duty. But until that, the buck stops with the federal government. It is their primary responsibility. The police in the state is under federal control. The entire security in the state is under federal control. So short of supplying information where a governor has information, short of that, it is federal responsibility.
Why do you think that, for example, again, back to Zamfara, in the thick of the crisis, there were reports that helicopters were flown in with Asians and guns and, if governments are looking away because maybe they're not necessarily in charge or they're not able to give security operatives an order of sorts, is that not failure in itself? Can you and I fly a chopper to to Bangladesh to steal plantain? I'm just even saying, can we do it?
Yeah, example. Certainly we cannot. You put it mildly when you say, is it not failure on the side of the government? The police, the security men that are guarding those immigrants, many of whom are even illegal immigrants, are they not Nigerian police? The problem we have here is a failure of official responsibility on the part of government. A lot of times when you hear of illegal mining, you hear of oil theft and all of that, Nigerian security agencies, Nigerian security officials are present in those places. So I think it's a question of our not having gotten our onions right, our not having put our house in order. There is too much happening with the participation or connivance of Nigerian officials. Too much of that happening. You won't go to Zamfara and not find police in those places. There are security agencies warding off people from those areas. Those agents are not Chinese policemen. They are not Asian policemen. They will be Nigerian police.
So we're part of the problem. It's a collective problem.
It is a collective problem because I think those who should be responsible appear not to be aware of their responsibility or appear not to be sure of what their responsibility is.
Okay.
Because rather than stop it, find them participating in it, in providing security for the criminals. Because anybody who is engaging in illegal mining is a criminal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Professor, because of time, I have just 5 minutes. I'm seeing my phone lines blink, and I want to see if I can take a few calls. We'll continue this conversation next week because we need to go into what the law says in, to the letter. And
That's
then we'll
all
talk
right.
about, this
Yeah.
issue of proliferation of arms, small arms, and what the law says. So Lagos, you can join the conversation. I have 4 minutes. I can take four quick calls. 0700 993 993 993. 0700 993 993 993 for a lady. 020 1465 7190. That's 020 1465 7190. And of course, you can join the conversation via WhatsApp. Send us your comments and your thoughts. 60 seconds is the time you have. Hello. Hello. All right, do call me back. Hello, welcome.
Hello. Good evening, Miriam. Good
Good
evening,
evening.
Prof.
Can you speak up? We can't hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Prof. Good evening, Miriam. Can you hear
Yes.
me now?
Is the phone not close to your
Good
mouth?
evening.
You sound very low.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Go ahead quickly.
Okay. From the discussion this evening, it's quite obvious that Nigeria is a porous country where every Tom, Dick, and Mariah enters into without any data. God help us all. So my question is, so far so good with this. I can't believe when they say illegal miners, and they were able to come into our country without anybody taking notice of it or something. So now, should these people be found culpable, sir? What do you think?
Okay.
Can the government even bring them to account? What do you think would happen so far?
All right. Thank you very much for calling. I'll take one quick call and then, Prof, you can answer both. Hello.
Hello, good evening, Mary Ann Pino.
Good evening. You have 60 quickly.
Yeah, the question I want to ask is, why is it that all the deposits in the East are for national treasure? Then deposit mineral resources in other parts of Nigeria are on individual
I'm
hands.
sorry. I want to correct you because you keep saying that. The deposit in the South is national treasure. The deposit in all of these other places is national treasure. The fact that there are people who are illegally mining it doesn't mean that those things are not national treasure. In River State, I lived in River State.
Okay,
People were illegally. Hold on.
Hold
on. There were people illegally mining crude oil in River State. They call it fire. One of the reasons why we have the particulate matter that is in the air that we call black soot. So your position, again, I remind you, is a wrong and a biased position. Capish?
The question I want to ask is, a particular gubernatorial candidate or governor declared his assets to 1 trillion naira. Then how did he get that money? Is it not the proceeds of illegal mining?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for calling, Professor. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Professor, you can answer us.
Okay. I'm not sure I got the last question. There was a glitch.
He was
as I was asking the question.
well. He was most.
For the first question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. For the first question, illegal mining means mining without authorization.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crime. Anyone caught in that activity is supposed to be punished. So will the federal government be able to punish them? Certainly. If you read what is on in the media concerning this Ibadan issue, you hear of Malians and Senegalese being involved and all that. Whether they are Asians or they are Americans, anyone who is involved in any of these activities who is caught will be charged to court and will be punished according to our law. Everybody can be punished anywhere in the world except a diplomat who is representing a country, in which case you send him to his country to be tried for the offense he has committed in yours. Other than that, every other person is answerable. So those illegal miners will be punished. If they are found, they will be prosecuted.
I have very little time. I think I have just 50 seconds. In a case where most of them are in cahoots with people in government, is there really the assurance that they will be punished? We're almost out of time. Prof.
Unless they are not found. If they are found, in a case like this, that has involved massive casualty and massive damage, it will be difficult for even their friends in government to protect them.
Okay.
So unless their identities are not found, they will be prosecuted if they are found.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have to run now. Professor Richard Aduche Wokocha is a professor of law at the Rivers University in Port Harcourt. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We'll pick up from where we stopped here today next week and, expand on the conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure.
All right. We have to go on a break, Lagos. When we come back from this break, the sports gang will be in the studio. But before then, we'll be talking to some gentlemen. And we'll be getting ready for the Nigerian match against Cote d'Ivoire. Stay with us.
Hey Lagos.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.